You know, we all have these incredibly important relationships in our lives with our partners, our families, our coworkers. But have you ever felt like you're just missing the instruction manual? Well, today we're going to explore what a blueprint for those connections could look like, getting into what really makes them tick. I mean, seriously, just imagine for a second if you had a guide, a kind of map that could help you navigate disagreements, build way deeper trust, and even understand why you connect with certain people the way you do. What would change for you if you had that kind of clarity? It's a powerful idea, and it's exactly what we're diving into.
All right, so to build that blueprint, we have to start with the absolute foundation. We're going to start by decoding some of the invisible forces and psychological patterns that are shaping every single one of our interactions, whether we realize it or not.
Okay, so our first tool is something called transactional analysis, or TA for short. And it's a really fascinating way to see the different modes we all slip into during conversations. You know that moment when you open your mouth and suddenly you sound exactly like your mom or dad? Or when you react to something with the pure emotion of your 5-year-old self? Yeah, that's what we're talking about. So TA breaks our personality down into 3 core ego states. First, you've got the parent. This is that internal voice of rules, of all the shoulds and should-nots we learned from grown-ups. Then there's the adult, which is our rational, logical, here-and-now problem solver. And finally, you have the child, which is where all our feelings, our creativity, and our core memories live. Most misunderstandings happen when these states get crossed up, like when one person's critical parent starts talking to another person's vulnerable child.
Next up, we have something called the imago concept. Now, this theory is wild. It suggests that we are unconsciously drawn to partners who are a lot like our parents or caregivers, both their best and their worst traits. Why? Well, the idea is that our subconscious is trying to go back and heal old childhood wounds through our adult relationships. It's an incredible lens for understanding attraction and connection.
So we've looked at what's driving us on the inside, but what happens when those drivers clash with someone else's? Well, that's conflict. And it turns out conflict isn't just random chaos. It actually follows a map. Let's take a look.
This is a huge insight that comes from a model developed by a guy named Friedrich Glasl. He discovered that conflict doesn't just happen out of nowhere. No, it follows a very predictable path, moving through very distinct stages, whether we see it happening or not. Glasl's full model actually has 9 stages, but they boil down to these 3 main phases. It all starts in phase 1, where a win-win solution is still totally possible. But if it keeps going, it tips over into phase 2, where it becomes all about winning at the other person's expense. And finally, if it's not stopped, it hits phase 3, the lose-lose stage. This is where the goal just becomes damaging the other person, even if it hurts you too. Just knowing what phase you're in is the first step to getting back in control.
And this, of course, leads to the most important question of all, right? It's one thing to see the map of escalation, but how do you actually turn the ship around? How do you de-escalate when emotions are running high and every single instinct in your body is telling you to just push forward? You know, mapping conflict is kind of like playing defense. But what about the offense? This next part is all about building relationships that are so strong, so resilient, they're just less likely to escalate in the first place. It's about building up our inner foundation.
And this quote from Viktor Frankl just nails the core idea perfectly. His work was all about finding meaning. And it teaches us that when our relationships have a clear sense of purpose, a real why, we can get through almost any difficulty or conflict that life throws at us.
So how do we actually build that resilient why? Well, it really comes down to these core skills. Building empathy helps us truly get our partner's why. Emotional intelligence helps us manage our own reactions when things get heated. And self-awareness, that helps us understand our own deeper purpose in the relationship. These are the pillars.
Okay, we've covered some really powerful ideas here, but theory is one thing, actually putting it into practice is a whole different ballgame. So how does someone really learn to make these skills second nature? Well, the approach has to be active. And let's just be super clear about this. You can't learn this stuff from a passive lecture. No way. Real, lasting change comes from active, hands-on practice in a place where you can safely experiment and get real feedback.
Yeah, the learning happens by doing. You'd literally role-play those parent-adult-child conversations to see how they feel. You'd work through real conflict scenarios in small groups, getting feedback so you can see your own blind spots. It's all about turning theory into muscle memory. It's like an active lab for your relationships.
So this kind of deep, practical work is all structured into a really focused experience that takes place over 5 days.
And to make absolutely sure that everyone gets personal attention and can build real trust, the groups are kept small. We're talking no more than 10 participants.
The investment for this entire 5-day specialized curriculum is €1,100.
So, as we wrap up, I just want to leave you with this one question to think about. Maybe it's your partner, a family member, a key colleague at work. What is the one relationship in your life where having a better blueprint could truly change everything? Answering that question for yourself, well, that's the first step. Thanks so much for joining me.